Usually when you look at a morning intelligence briefing, it feels like someone just dumped a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle onto your kitchen table and, like, walked out of the room.
Oh, absolutely. It is the absolute definition of information overload.
Right. Because you've got an inflation report over here, a diplomatic summit over there,
Yeah.
and, a massive heat wave somewhere else entirely.
Yeah, and a tech breakthrough just buried underneath all of it. I mean, we naturally want to, categorize things into neat little boxes, finance in one box, technology in another, global politics in a third.
But the world doesn't actually operate in neat little boxes. So today, we're going to put that puzzle together for you. We're cutting straight through the noise to find the hidden threads connecting all these disparate events.
It's the only way to actually make sense of it all.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we have to start with the single piece that changes the shape of all the others today, which is the Strait of Hormuz.
Which, honestly, perfectly sets up the underlying theme of everything happening right now. If you step back from the daily noise, you realize we are watching a story about the world's desperate search for stability.
Right, stability.
Yeah, and that search for stability, it isn't just for peace of mind. It is a strict prerequisite to fuel the next massive leap in human technology.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because we are starting with geopolitics since it really anchors the entire global economy. Right now, U.S.-Iran diplomacy is entering a critical new week.
A very critical week, yes.
And it's building off a tentative agreement that started taking shape back in late May, I believe. And the entire focus of this diplomacy revolves around keeping the Strait of Hormuz calm.
Yeah, and to understand the weight of that, you really have to look at the physical geography. The Strait of Hormuz is this incredibly narrow stretch of water between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman.
It's tiny, right?
It is. At its narrowest point, the shipping lanes are only about 2 miles wide in either direction. Yet, roughly 20% of the world's entire oil consumption passes through that tiny bottleneck every single day.
Wow, 20%. I mean, think of it like a major vital artery for the global economic body.
That's a great way to put it.
When that artery is restricted or even just, threatened with restriction, the heart rate of the entire world spikes. Because if a single oil tanker is attacked, maritime insurance premiums just skyrocket overnight.
They absolutely do. The cost of shipping doubles. Energy prices surge.
Right, supply chains panic. And that ultimately trickles down to the price you pay for groceries or like a gallon of gas. Inflation just gets worse.
What's fascinating here is how the opposite is also true. When it's calm, when it's unblocked, and shipping conditions remain stable, the entire global economy can finally just take a breath and relax.
Which is exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah. And that physical geopolitical stability is the exact environment the financial markets desperately need right now. When the oil markets aren't experiencing these massive, unpredictable shocks, investors can actually focus on the underlying fundamentals.
Which explains the hyper-focus on this week's massive economic data dump. I mean, with oil stable, inflation metrics become a much purer reflection of the actual domestic economy, right? You strip away the geopolitical static.
That is exactly the goal. Investors are currently laser-focused on shifting interest rate expectations, along with some major manufacturing and employment reports coming up.
Right.
And we are seeing the direct results of this cautious optimism. For example, Treasury yields are remaining elevated right now.
Okay, wait, let's pause there for a second because we hear the phrase elevated Treasury yields a lot in these briefings. What does that actually mean for the average person's wallet?
Sure. So, put simply, a Treasury yield is the return you get for lending your money to the U.S. government. When those yields are elevated, it means the government is paying a higher interest rate to borrow money. And if the safest investment in the world, U.S. debt, is paying out well, it sets the baseline for everything else.
So it ripples out.
Exactly. It means mortgages, car loans, and credit cards are also going to remain expensive. Investors are sort of adjusting to this as a new normal. Capital is expensive, so it has to be deployed very strategically.
And yet, even with that, we are seeing Bitcoin hovering near recent highs, while gold is also reflecting a very specific shift in geopolitical sentiment. Capital is still flowing because the foundation, at least for the moment, feels solid.
Solid but delicate. I mean, it's crucial not to mistake a pause in volatility for permanent peace.
Right, of course.
Ukraine and Russia are continuing long-range drone attacks targeting deep infrastructure, and NATO is actively tightening its European security postures. So the global equilibrium is very, very fragile.
Right, but let's follow that energy thread, because this is where things take a really wild turn in the briefing.
Yeah.
We've got the world spending immense diplomatic capital to keep traditional oil and gas flowing, just to keep the economy stable. But underneath that, a massive new energy consumer is completely rewriting long-term utility planning.
It's staggering.
It is. We are talking about the staggering electricity demand of AI infrastructure.
This is perhaps the most consequential transition happening in the background of our daily lives right now. While diplomacy is managing the traditional energy grid, the future of the global economy is being dictated by electricity.
Yeah.
Specifically by the hyperscalers.
And just to clarify, these are the massive cloud providers, right? Like Microsoft, Amazon, Google. The term hyperscaler sounds like something out of a sci-fi novel, but it's really just a company operating data centers at a scale that just defies traditional computing.
Precisely. They are building these warehouse-sized brains packed with highly specialized microchips.
Right.
And those brains are hungry. The power density required to train and run next-generation artificial intelligence models is orders of magnitude higher than traditional cloud computing.
Because it's not just hosting a website anymore.
Exactly. If you are just hosting a website or streaming a movie, a standard server rack doesn't actually draw that much power.
Okay.
But if you have thousands of GPUs running matrix multiplication simultaneously to train, say, a trillion-parameter AI model, the heat generated and the electricity drawn are just astronomical. Utilities are literally having to tear up their long-term capacity plans.
Wait, I have to challenge this for a second. Are we just trading one energy dependency for another? I mean, we stabilize Middle East oil just to turn around and immediately drain our own domestic power grids with these massive data centers. That feels like we are running on a treadmill.
That is a very fair point. It's not necessarily trading one for another, though, because they serve entirely different functions.
How so?
Well, oil moves physical things, ships, trucks, airplanes. Electricity, in this context, powers digital cognition.
Ah, I see.
But you are entirely correct that it's a massive infrastructure shock. You cannot just plug a gigawatt AI data center into the existing electrical grid without catastrophic consequences for local communities.
Right. The grid would just fail.
Yeah. If a hyperscaler drops a new facility in a mid-sized town, it could consume as much power as all the homes in that town combined.
Which totally explains this sudden, massive push for grid modernization that we saw in the brief. We are seeing unprecedented investments in accelerating battery storage deployments and expanding physical transmission lines.
And this brings us to the concept of baseload power. AI data centers cannot rely solely on wind or solar energy. They just can't.
Because the sun goes down.
Exactly. They can't shut off when the wind stops blowing or the sun sets. They require massive, uninterrupted electricity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Which is exactly why nuclear power is suddenly back at the forefront of policy attention.
Yes. What's fascinating here is how AI is inadvertently forcing a green energy renaissance.
That is wild.
It is. The AI industry realizes that its ultimate bottleneck isn't the supply of microchips anymore, it's the supply of electricity. That requirement is driving severe capital into nuclear energy, and it's also why fusion energy startups are continuing to attract serious investment right now.
So tech companies are incentivizing a complete overhaul of how we generate and store power.
Yeah.
Simply because they need the juice to run their products.
Exactly. They have to.
Okay, so we're practically rebuilding the electrical grid to feed these AI brains.
Yeah.
But all this massive power consumption, all these billions of dollars in infrastructure, it has a very specific end goal. It's about taking AI out of the laboratory and injecting it directly into the daily operations of almost every business on the planet.
The deployment phase.
Right. We are moving from the training phase to the deployment phase.
It's the industrial revolution of knowledge work.
And the speed of this adoption is wild. The briefing noted that Microsoft is aggressively expanding its enterprise deployments. We are seeing AI coding assistants completely reshape software development.
Oh, the coding is a huge shift.
Yeah. Instead of a programmer typing out every single line of code, the AI anticipates what they want to build and drafts whole sections of it.
And if we connect this to the broader scientific community, look at what is happening in the pharmaceutical industry. The drug discovery process is fundamentally changing as we speak.
Right. They highlighted that in the brief.
Yeah. Historically, discovering a new drug meant scientists physically mixing and testing compounds in a lab for years to see what binds to a specific disease protein.
Just a massive amount of trial and error.
Exactly. But now, multimodal AI models can simulate millions of molecular structures digitally in a matter of hours, predicting exactly which ones will work before a single physical test tube is ever touched.
Wow.
It shrinks years of trial and error down to a Tuesday afternoon.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Because this revolution isn't just a smooth, frictionless upward curve. There are serious speed bumps. Look at what happened in Florida on June 1st.
The lawsuit.
Yes, the state became the first to officially sue OpenAI over ChatGPT safety failures.
And that lawsuit represents a much larger structural tension right now. It's the friction of transition.
Right.
On one hand, you have hyperscalers pushing the absolute boundaries of what these models can do, racing to deploy them as fast as possible to recoup their massive infrastructure investments.
Because they spent billions on the power and the chips.
Exactly. But on the other hand, you have governments, public health agencies, and major corporations slamming the brakes, demanding guardrails.
You know, it reminds me of the early days of the commercial internet, like the transition from the dial-up era into broadband. You had this massive, undeniable potential that was obviously going to change the world, but it was effectively a Wild West.
That's a really good comparison.
It was chaotic.
Yeah.
And businesses back then, just like enterprise customers today, were looking around saying, we want to use this, but we need it to be predictable.
Predictability is the absolute key word there. We are shifting from the hype phase into the utility phase. Think about how a chief financial officer buys software today. Usually, it's a predictable monthly fee.
Right, like $20 a month per employee for access to a word processor.
Exactly. But generative AI is often priced by usage, by the token, or by how much compute power a specific prompt requires.
Right. Because if an employee asks an AI to write a 3-sentence email, that costs a fraction of a cent. But if they upload a 500-page financial report and ask the AI to cross-reference it with a decade of market data, that single query could cost $50.
Yes.
How does a company budget for that?
They can't. Not easily. And that is exactly what enterprise customers are demanding right now. They want predictable AI pricing, usage-based models that don't blow up their budgets, and absolute guarantees that their proprietary company data isn't being used to train a public model.
They want measurable returns, not just the hype.
Precisely. Knowledge and technology are only valuable to a business when they can be applied safely and reliably.
Which brings up a huge operational vulnerability. If AI is suddenly writing your software code, summarizing your legal documents, and managing your network, the surface area for a cyber attack just grew exponentially.
It is an escalating arms race. The tools of attack are getting smarter, which means the tools of defense have to evolve just as fast.
Right.
The data shows that overall technology hiring remains highly selective right now. Tech companies aren't just hiring for general headcount anymore.
They're being very specific.
Very. But the demand for AI-skilled workers is surging, and equally important is the massive growth in demand for cybersecurity talent.
Because hackers are absolutely using AI to find loopholes in corporate networks faster than human security teams can patch them.
Precisely. Hospitals, government agencies, and private businesses are all actively strengthening their cyber defenses right now. Cybersecurity officials are constantly monitoring evolving software supply chain risks.
It's a constant battle.
It is. I mean, an AI coding assistant might write a brilliant piece of software, but if it accidentally hallucinates a tiny security flaw in line 4000, a malicious AI will find it and exploit it. Upskilling human operators to manage these AI defense grids has become a top corporate priority.
Okay, so we've been deep in the digital weeds here. We've talked about global choke points, hyperscale data centers, and the friction of AI entering the workplace. But there is a striking contrast happening right now in the brief.
Yes, there is.
Because while we're pouring billions of dollars into reshaping knowledge work in the cloud, our actual physical world is screaming for attention.
It is a vital counterbalance to all of this. We are building the most advanced digital architecture in human history, but we don't live in a data center. We live in a physical environment that is experiencing its own extreme pressures.
Right. Let's run through the physical realities happening right now, because they don't stop just because we invented a better chatbot.
Exactly.
Over in Europe, a massive heat wave is actively straining physical infrastructure and public health. Humanitarian agencies are warning of worsening food insecurity globally.
It's a huge issue.
And back here in the U.S., severe summer weather continues to batter major portions of the country. And the physical challenges extend to our borders as well. Border and immigration challenges remain a massive logistical issue.
Yeah, that was highlighted in the brief, too.
It was. They noted a recent discovery where federal authorities uncovered a 2,000-foot drug tunnel physically connecting Mexico to the U.S. I mean, it's just a stark physical reality governments are managing.
And this raises a fascinating point about resource allocation. Think about the European heat wave. We just talked about how AI data centers require massive, uninterrupted power.
Right.
Now introduce a historic heat wave where millions of people are simultaneously turning on their air conditioning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the physical grid is being squeezed from both sides, the digital demand for compute and the human demand for survival.
It's incredible when you frame it that way. Millions of dollars are flowing into AI modernization initiatives, yet housing affordability remains a major, unresolved national challenge. We're struggling with the basic physical infrastructure of shelter, climate resilience, and border management.
The digital world promises infinite scale, but the physical world has hard limits.
It really does.
And those limits are demanding real-world resources, concrete, steel, and human labor.
Which brings us to what people are actually doing with their time. Because despite the geopolitical tension, despite the AI revolution, and despite the physical infrastructure challenges, human culture does what human culture always does.
It seeks connection.
Right. Right now, we are looking at one of the busiest Independence Day travel weeks on record as preparations for America's 250th anniversary start ramping up.
People are physically moving. They want to be somewhere else together.
Exactly. And globally, the world's attention is utterly captivated by the World Cup knockout football matches. The summer movie season is in full swing.
People still want to be entertained.
Yeah, streaming platforms are fighting for eyeballs, live entertainment is booming, and the creator economy continues to expand. People want to listen to unscripted podcasts, they want to watch documentaries, they want to go to crowded stadiums.
It is the defining duality of this specific moment in history. Technology and capital are heavily focused on long-term infrastructure, efficiency, automation, and scale. We want AI to optimize our supply chains and discover new drugs. But human culture is seeking immediate connection, entertainment, and shared physical experiences. We are using digital automation in the workplace so that we can maximize our physical experiences in the foreground.
So what does this all mean for you? You're living in a world where you might be using an AI agent to help write code at work today, or maybe you're dealing with software a company just bought to optimize your workflow.
Yeah.
But on your drive home, you're still dealing with the reality of inflation at the grocery store, you're navigating a summer heat wave, and at the end of the day, you just want to sit down with your friends, turn off your phone, and enjoy a World Cup match.
It's that balance.
We started with the idea of a puzzle, and the picture that has emerged is of a world that is rapidly building a new digital nervous system while still desperately trying to manage and protect a very fragile physical body.
I love that analogy. And if we connect all those puzzle pieces from the Strait of Hormuz to the AI data centers, it leaves us with a profound question about the future. What? Well, we started this deep dive by establishing that the Strait of Hormuz is the vital artery of the global economy because it controls the flow of oil.
Right, the 20% we talked about.
Exactly. But if AI infrastructure and hyperscale data centers are becoming the absolute determining factor for global economic dominance, what happens in 10 years? Will the geopolitical conflicts of the next decade be less about who controls the physical shipping lanes for oil and entirely about who controls the power grids, the physical land, and the massive amounts of cooling water required to keep these giant AI brains functioning?
Wow. That completely flips the map of global power upside down. Instead of looking at oceans and canals, we'll be looking at electrical grids and server farms. The new global choke points might be power substations.
The definition of a strategic resource is changing right in front of us.
That is definitely something to chew on the next time you ask an AI to summarize a document for you. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, look for those hidden connections, and we will catch you next time.